looking out for someone. What's this fella's name?
Got several names.
Willie Mates Bonnie, Kid Antrim,
And Billy the Kid.
Believe me, I really do not want to kill you.
Well, you play the title character in this new EPIX series, Billy the Kid. And you did some really interesting research to prepare to play him. You traveled, you went to you made a pilgrimage, basically. Can you describe that?
I did make a kind of pilgrimage of sorts. About 3 weeks before we were due to start filming, I was tired of reading books, to be totally honest with you. I had kind of done all the nebulous thinking that I could possibly do up to that point and felt like I needed to do something more tangible to feel kind of in the skin of it, of Billy. And so I booked a very last minute flight to Arizona, flew into Phoenix, and then rented a car and drove for 6 or 7 days around New Mexico and kind of hit all the spots that he lived in, worked and died in, and kind of culminated in visiting his grave in Fort Sumner. And so really the main aim was just to kind of feel the dust underneath my feet that he walked on, to kind of make it palpable, make it real, make it not just a myth that's written in a book, but something that I could touch with my own hands,
Well, he's definitely a folk hero. Describe how he's presented in this series. The first 2 episodes, we see a lot of his past, sort of like his formative years. The first episode is almost all the child actor version of Billy. But, later in the series, we really start to see him come into his own as a man. So describe that man.
I think the way we see him, at least in season 1 so far, is I don't think he is yet a man, actually. I think that the whole season is about him becoming a man. And I think as we get towards the end, the last few episodes, you see him realizing what he has to become to survive and to live in a world that he wanted to live in. He realizes that he has to be, it's a bit of a cliche, but kind of be the change he wants to see. And sadly, in that time, it meant embracing violence to a certain extent and embracing, fighting against a corrupt system. And so I think in season 1, we're going to see a Billy who is, I think he's really struggling to kind of negotiate his moral compass, which his mother gave him, because he was raised by this incredibly strong mother who he was very close to and very respectful of. But yeah, he's been given this incredible moral compass and this incredible set of values by which he lives by his mom mainly, and some other influential figures. But I think we're seeing him struggle with kind of holding on to those values while still trying to fight the corruption and honestly the oppression that he sees at every turn, and realizing that actually sometimes you have to put your values to the side and do something that you don't necessarily think is right in order to find the right path.
Talk about how Billy experiences grief and how that changes him.
I think his whole person is almost built out of grief, honestly, which is a sad thing to say, but I think he's constantly dealing with loss. And I do actually think that's kind of one of the main through lines of what the show is about, is how trauma shapes someone and makes them harder. I think this is, we know him as this, or we think we know him as this kind of sociopathic mass murderer who was good with a gun and good on a horse. But he is in fact just someone who has been hardened day after day by constant loss. I think actually he was a very cynical, guarded person. And I think that's what the show really portrays him as.
We start to see how appealing he is to women in episode 3. Like he's being taken off by the authorities, but somebody's got to grab him and kiss him as he goes. So
Yep.
Can you talk about kind of the relationships that he has? And I know he has another one coming up with Barbara Jones, who meets him later. So let's talk about his romantic life a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he's interesting because he's not someone who goes he doesn't really go looking for anything in his life. He's kind of one of these annoying people in the world who things don't seem to happen to him. He's kind of a magnet, he's kind of like a gravitational force, which all the history books talk about, how he was kind of this magnetic, enigmatic character who people couldn't help but like, even when he was doing bad things. He had these almost two brains, within him that were always warring and always fighting. And I think that makes him an attractive person. Yeah, I don't know. He's kind of an enigma, you know.
Well, there's also the basic bad boy aspect.
There's also that. Yeah. yeah. Everyone loves a bad boy.
Billy the Kid premieres Sunday, April 24th on EPIX. For more insider videos like this, click subscribe.